All right. So first one tonight, I posted this week. I posted this rather cryptic message in our group, saying that if your coach is still using line drills, and I put a little just an angry face. And oh my god, the amount of people that posted who obviously had their underwear obviously twisted up was fascinating to me because one of the things that the purpose of these videos, the purpose of our group, the purpose of pretty much everything that I do when it comes to dealing with athletes and parents is to develop a bit of an understanding, a different way of thinking. Okay, and now I have my opinions, and you'll have yours. Um, but if your opinion doesn't match mine, it's obviously wrong. Totally kidding, totally kidding. But the idea here is that when people get super defensive about a way to do things that they've been doing for a really long time, that usually is a big sign to me. That's usually almost an indicator that that person is so set in their ways that they're no longer really a good coach. Sorry, I hate to say it, but it's one thing to be like able to fully defend your approach in a way that it makes sense. It's another way to say, like, "This is the way I always done it," and there was some comment like, "Line drills have gone, have been a staple since 1950." And I'm like, "Whoa, if you really think that's, like, your trump card on, like, ending this conversation, like, just because it's been done for 70 years, mean it needs to be continued." Like, yes, there's some things in life that makes sense, but that's the same type of person to me that, wishes we played with catgut and leather lacing in our round leathers, brown leathers. They've missed, like, the super light 2, of the and like, it's like, oh, they harken back to days gone by. I'm like, yo, you can't do that as a coach. And the other thing is to think that the kids of today are anything like the kids of 1950. You're you're doing those kids a disservice, right? Now I want to talk a little bit about today. Like, and I know we're all here, we've all come together because of goalies and lacrosse goalies and things like that. But I want to talk about this just kind of as more of a almost a holistic thing. I'll weave in some things for goalies specifically, but more so an understanding of, for the people that defend doing line drills, and say, like, "Oh, well, I've had kids go on and become all Americans." I would just say, like, those kids probably became all Americans not necessarily because of you, but possibly in spite of you, because there's just a level of thinking to this that really bothers me. Right now, I'll start by saying this, that line drills look like they should be uh, really applicable. But the problem is when you really break down a lacrosse game, both the men's and the women's game, you realize that they only represent the tiniest, like a fraction of the game. And what that fraction is that I'm looking in a direction and I'm throwing the ball in hopes that it hits a target. Okay. Now, the problem with that is that, so let me just back up for a second, because the video that I saw that made me post what I did came from a Division 1 women's lacrosse program. And I was thinking, like, "Oh my god." Right? Like, if you're still doing that at the D1 level, you're wasting time, because here's why. The level of skill, like, so as you get better at a skill, right? We all understand that there are fundamentals. However, there are times when the fundamental is no longer specific enough, or taxing enough, where your player is actually is improving. They actually may be regressing. Okay. Now I heard this talked about in an interview with Josh Waitzkin, who wrote a book called The Art of Learning, which I highly recommend everybody reads. Like, if you've got kids that in any sport whatsoever, not just lacrosse, you should read that book, because the some of you guys know the story Raising Bobby Fischer, which was about a chess prodigy. Well, that book is based on Josh Waitzkin. But one of the things, in chess is that there's you build these, these moves, and then you build up into more and more complexity. And I remember hearing him talk about that, and it made me think about line drills. And so so the base skill of your athlete, when what happens is you get to a point where you can still work on like fundamental drills, but they are so not like the athlete's brain is completely off in, they're not focused. And what we want is when we want to help get an athlete into flow, and flow is where the skills that you have and the challenge that you're facing are somewhat evenly met. And the idea is like if the challenge is about 4% greater than what the athlete is used to, well then the brain is like firing on all cylinders, and it's just like that's the sweet spot. Problem is with line drills for really advanced athletes is that they're it's so simple that they're thinking about like, lunch, or where they're going for a beer after the game, or they're thinking about their math test. Now, that's at the upper level. At the lower level, some of you are going like, "Well, I've got kids that can't even catch. I can't. I got kids that can't even walk in a straight line." Well, okay, I get it, but what are things you have to understand? And I want to start with this point: is that lacrosse, okay, field lacrosse especially, is more complicated than ice hockey because the puck never leaves the ice. In field lacrosse, the ball is moving usually in an arc, especially for young kids. The ball's moving in an arc, and that's hard. I for years this someone taught me that this may not be the case, but for years I had been taught that the development of the eye kind of takes it takes a lot longer than people think. That's why it's hard to catch a ball that's moving in an arc and at you. If you think about if we're doing line drills, I see that ball leaving the stick, and then it's basically a target that's primarily like staying within a zone unless it's been looped at me. And that target's just getting bigger and bigger, bigger. Now, the thing about that is that what line drills does, okay, is replicates something that never happens in a game, right? We are never running at each other to pass each other the ball. That it may be the case over like a massive distance. Like if I'm a goalie in the crease and I've got a midi who's just come off onto the field, they might be running at me in a straight line and I'd be running at them. But I'm making a pass that's probably 20, 30 yards. Um, the problem is in a lot of line drills is that they're done like very close. And we all know that in a game scenario that if I'm making a pass to you and you're like 5 yards away from me, you're the one probably out of position. So I don't want to reinforce that at all, right? I want to reinforce like the idea that you're going to be running most likely probably away from me or on an angle, and I want to pass to you this way. That's why like I don't even like the star drill, which a lot of people go to and they think it's too complex for their athletes. I would just argue it's not necessarily complexity; it just doesn't really happen in a game. So I don't like that. Um, from so one, you have this idea that the idea of a line drill is so basic and so simple that it's not taxing good athletes, and then even the athletes that are brand new, it's reinforcing something that rarely happens in a game. Now, the other side to that is that for a goal for like inline drills, people say like, well, oh, you can do other stuff. You can do over the shoulder passing. Yes, that's true. You can also put the ball on the ground. Yes, that's true. But the ball is rarely coming at you, right? Like it's usually something you've got to chase after. So there's a myriad of things you can do um, as opposed to line drills to replicate that are more applicable to what your athlete is going to find in a game. Okay, so let me bring this to goalies. If you're dealing with younger athletes or new athletes where their stick skills aren't great, we've all seen line drills where it's like, okay, we give the ball to the first kid and she runs out and then she makes a pass to the girl in the next line, hopefully who's paying attention. And then the girl who is receiving the pass The ball may sail over her head. She may miss it outright. Well, the second girl in line or the second guy in line, he's not paying attention. What happens to that ball? Well, it ends up like 20 yards behind the line, and you've got one ball in the drill. And so the kid who missed the pass is now running to go get that ball, maybe 15, 20 yards, maybe more. And that takes time. Meanwhile, everybody else is standing around. Everybody, everybody's standing around. And that's just a massive waste of time. So if you're looking for repetitions, what I would argue is that the best thing you can do to start is, instead of running line drills, especially if you got young kids or new kids, is that you just have them shoot, right? Because most likely for your goalie, they're going to benefit from seeing more shots. And then what you can do is that the shooters, what they're learning basically is how to make an accurate pass. Because what is a shot but an accurate pass? Okay, so that's the first thing. That's one of the things where, like, I just stopped doing line drills. And then so instead of doing line drills, I do shooting drills. And so then what you can do is you can then add any sort of complexity around that you'd like to. So let's say I've got more than one goalie, right? So I'm going to have a line up here on the left, and they're going to shoot, and after they shoot, my goalie in the cage, they can make an outlet pass to maybe another set of kids on the field, or maybe you have a line, you have a line side right, and that goalie's going to yell clear, and that kid's going to go, and they're going to make an outlet pass. Now, I don't care if that kid misses the pass, because I still have kids working. And then that player over here, they are going to end up like down, they can chase that ball however long it takes them, and they'll still get in line and be ready to go. And then you can add all sorts of other complexity around as well, where you can have pass. So a lot of my coaches, especially for younger kids, it's like they're all by themselves, or maybe they have like one helper. And so what I would tell them to do is, like, okay, you can still, like, if you want to shoot on a goalie and work on that and be in the center, that's great. Well, then you put the rest of your team in some sort of formation that they're going to find on game day. Maybe for the girls, you put one girl back left, another girl back right. You can put them in a big, like a large box. You can have a group of girls top right, a group of girls top left, and you can run that line drill, but not where they're going face to face. You have them in more applicable situation on the field, right? So people, got their backs up and posted in the group, like, I did line drills, and I led my team to the tournament. Okay, great. Who's to say that they couldn't have gone further in the tournament had you taken that time and added more complexity that was more game specific, right? And that's one of the biggest things I see lost, because I see goalie videos every week, right? One of the things that's really like that I love what I do is I see videos from teams all over the country, from D1 all the way down to like U12, right? Sometimes even like U10. And I see the quality of practices. And what blows my mind is how well, this is interesting, because there's a lack of creativity, but then there's just like creativity for creativity's sake. Like, I saw this goalie, these two goalies the other day, and the coach had said, these goalies were standing about like 12 yards apart, and they gave a ball to each of the goalies and said, I want you to pass to each other at the same time. And these kids were like 11. Well, you can just guess how that went. You right? I saw like 3 reps of this, and I just was shaking my head, going like, what the hell are you doing? One, you know, when a goalie needs to pass the ball, they need to see a target, and they need to hit it, right? They need to step into it and launch it, and hit that player on the run, typically, not standing still, right? So this is where, while people like think like that line drills are a good base foundation thing to do, I would argue that it's not as base and foundational as you think it is. The part of it that is foundational is this idea of me running, and then me throwing a pass that's hopefully accurate. Well, I can do that onto a kid in the cage. And what's cool about that is the kid throwing the ball, or shooting the ball in that case, is more incentivized right? They're like, I get a chance to maybe score here, right? So you can put a line down on the field and say, okay, Jimmy, I want you to shoot the ball after here, or Karen, you can only shoot it like, from this far. Like, don't go past the stick on the ground, or the cone, or that shoe I laid out, or the marking, the field marking paint that I put down, whatever you want to do, right? So now they're like, yeah, great. So that shooter now is that passer is actually shooting, and you could tell the kids like, okay, I want all these passes to go stick side high on the goalie. Well, when Karen comes down and she misses the cage altogether, Karen's going like, "Oh my god, that was horrible." And the coach can give Karen a little nudge and say, "Hey, Karen, you totally missed it, right?" And then it's like, "Okay, Sophie, you're next." And Sophie goes, "Well, I'm not going to do what Karen did." Sophie comes down and now she's zoning in, and I can just guarantee you that and I've lived this with teams where the focus from the kids then when they're shooting on a net or passing to a spot on the net is that they're more involved than when Sophie and Karen are in a line and Sophie's like, yada da, I'm going to give it to Karen, but she can't catch anything anyway. And now we're all waiting to get the ball picked up. It's just a better use of time. Now, in the high school and onto the collegiate level, where kids can pretty much catch and throw, primarily, I get it. Some of you guys play with teams where that's not the case. I'm still going to do the same thing, right? I'm going to put my team in a formation and maybe it's like 5 lines. For my guys, like whenever I've coached like boys teams, I'll put a line at X, I'll put a line, you know, uh, goal line extended side right, goal line extended side left, and then I'll put 2 lines. Like I'll put a line top right and a line top left, right? And then we can work around like clockwise and say, all right, we're gonna, and then the big thing I would just encourage everyone to do is stick away from the cage, right? Always stick away from the cage. Even if you're operating drills, like let's say you're prepping before a tournament and you don't have a lot of space, and so you're just like crammed down the side of some field. I get it. Then what I would do is I wouldn't do necessarily a line drill. What I would do is I put one in the middle. And so this basically a drill that comes from soccer a lot. Ball starts with one line, and there's one player in the middle, and you're going to say, okay, guys, the net's over there, right? The net's over there. So what? I always want my stick away from the cage. So if I'm facing one line, my stick is going to be in my left hand. I'm going to catch that ball. I'm going to roll away, stick away from the cage, which is something that fundamentally you want to have happen in the game. And then they're going to switch hands and pass that ball. Now you've got people on either end that can back up passes, right? And then you're going to have extra balls laying around. And then you can give the person in the middle like 4 reps, and then they go to the end of a line. And the next person 4 reps and the end of the line. And just like it's moving, right? Stuff's moving. So, but like what I invariably see with line drills, even if you have like not a lot of players, is I see a lot of people standing around while one kid is usually chasing a ball, right? And that's a waste of time. So don't do that, right? And your goalies will benefit tremendously. And by telling those kids like, okay, guys, we're gonna run. After everybody gets like 2 shots, stick side high, we're gonna do 2 shots off stick high, 2 shots stick side low, 2 shots off stick low, um, and so on and so forth. So that's really important. Alex, phasing out line drills has been emphasized in the U.S. lacrosse athlete development model over the last few years. I find my practices are much better without them. That's really cool, Alex. To be honest, I haven't heard that. Like, I haven't heard that explained like that. I mean, I know amongst coaches, we talk about it, but I never really saw it as like a line item somewhere saying like we're trying to get rid of these things. But if that's true, if you can find me a link, send it to me. Because yeah, like that's like it just blows my mind that but actually I shouldn't say that. It doesn't blow my mind because I do run into a lot of coaches where they're like, I've been doing this since 1986 and this is the way and I'm like, yo, it's one thing there's certain things to hang your hat on. Like this doesn't have to be one of them. Those coaches are usually also the ones that think goalies, are getting slowed down because they're wearing chest protectors, right? Not shin guards. So, um, yeah. So anyway, but that's really cool, Alex. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. Um, Dave Caldwell, that was the best point about kids today versus my old age. And looking forward to this as a lacrosse newbie. Listen, hey Dave, I'll tell you something. Um, one thing, if you're new to me, if you're new to this group, like if you're new to my way of thinking, I'm a huge fan of like, and this may not be you, but I'm a huge fan of dads and jeans. Okay, Joel Rose was I think the first guy that you coined that term, but um, uh, but I know it's always been around for years. But I'm a huge fan of like the dad or the grandfather or the guy that comes out to be part of it, because a lot of times you bring there's a level of thinking that comes where you're just like, this doesn't make sense to me, or maybe you have some other sporting experience. And that's what I try to do with lacrosse is I try to go like, guys, there's other sports that do a million other things way better than we do in lacrosse. And I've said this before, and Alex, to your point about like USA lacrosse, um uh, you look at soccer, and soccer has and even like AAU basketball and things like that in hockey, especially up in Canada, there's a tremendous amount of coaching resources. Now USA Lacrosse kind of has it, but it's not nearly as respected as those other sports. Right? It's just kind of like, oh yeah, yeah, whatever. Because I think there's too many people just kind of set in their ways and doing the things they want to do it, and that really bothers me. Okay, so I want to just make sure we cover that. So just listen, if you're hearing me out, skip line drills. Okay, just skip them. Like your kids, even if you've got like seriously, if you've got college people, do not like if you're doing line drills, you're just wasting your time. You've got to develop a level of applicability to a game, right? And add some more complexity, because the baseline, your kids are way above that baseline, and their brains are they're not learning at all. And people say, well, like, oh, well, they're just like warming up, they're getting loose. Oh, yeah, go like this is where I could probably come to the conclusion that juggling is probably a better idea than doing line drills at this point. All right. But nobody heard me say that, and if I see your team juggling before practice, I'll anyway. All right. So listen, I hope that helps. And if your coach is still stuck on line drills, please, 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 please. Um, you heard about that Orbeez challenge thing? Your coach may be ready for an Orbeez challenge. But no, totally don't do that. Don't do that. That's not cool. But listen, if you're like diehard set on doing line drills and you want to put together a decent argument, email me, Coach Edwards at lacrossegoalietips.com. Like email it to me, because one, I want you to write it out. I want you to see what you're writing. I want you to see what your argument is, because what I guarantee will happen is as you're writing that stuff down, you'll realize how shallow and weak those arguments are. Okay? Guaranteed. All right. So that's my challenge to you. All right. Questions. Jennifer Walsh, great question. How do you convince your child's coach to change? Well, Jennifer, like, listen, that's a really good question, and this is where, as a parent, like, I don't know what part of the world you're in, but what ends up happening is, listen, in every sport, soccer, hockey, it doesn't matter what the sport is, especially if your kids are young, you're limited sometimes by the coach. You're like, sometimes people are just thankful there's a coach there, right? Your kid likes lacrosse. Maybe you've never played lacrosse, or your husband or your boyfriend has never played lacrosse, whatever. And you're just like, wow, hey, that's great. And you don't know any better. And so then you hear me say it and you go like, well, hey, listen, coach, like that will fall on deaf ears in a heartbeat, because you don't have the experience. Maybe they have a little bit more than you. And they're just like, okay, no, it's my way or the highway. What you can do though is like, so I encourage parents to be respectfully disagreeable. What I mean by that is that I wrote about this in my book. This idea that having a relationship with your coach, especially as goalies, if your kid's a goalie, you really have one of the best ins with a coach, because in lacrosse, what I found is, and almost like hockey's the same, because listen, in ice hockey, people think the same way you guys do as field lacrosse goalie parents. It's this idea that, oh my God, we don't really have any great coaching for our kids. But what do you do? So you have the opportunity to just kind of have a relationship with a coach, as long as you're not a jerk. Okay. If you're a jerk, then you lose all bets are off. Okay. I have a guy, like, just a quick little side. when I coached this was like 6 years ago, I coached my son's soccer team, and we had a boy on that team who was a real challenge, like, developmentally was a real challenge. This was, like, tier 4, 5 kids, like, this kid was not great, and one of the things that I do every year, whenever I'm in a situation like that is I send a letter, an email to all the parents with a questionnaire. One of the lines of the questionnaire says, "Listen, if there's something up with your kid where they need extra help, right, tell me about it now, because eventually I'm gonna find out about it." Right? And in this case, this dad, and this usually is the case, the parents that don't get back to you are the parents that have the kids that are gonna be the biggest challenge, and that was the case. This guy 6 years later still, like, trolls me on YouTube because we had a situation where with his kid and, like, I raised my voice to get this kid to actually, like, have a little pattern interrupt because this was crazy. Like, I had not seen this before, and I had a team of amazing boys except for this one kid. Now, I doubt that's your kid, Jennifer, okay? But if you have a relationship with a coach and something weird happens, then you can bring something up. But then you can also go like, "Hey, could we, I was listening to Coach Edwards from Lacrosse School University, and he talked about maybe instead of doing line drills where a lot of the kids are like missing the balls, we could actually have them shoot on the net, right? And would you be open to that?" And now he might come back to you and say like, "Well, maybe, but no, I've got too many kids or whatever. That would be a mess." But Jennifer, like if you want to kind of go that route, then maybe he's open-minded and say like, "Listen, coach, I was listening to Coach Edwards and he said, the kids' focus goes up when they actually shoot on they might not be as accurate, but they still like can focus. And now the goalie's getting work and the kids are getting shots. And that sounds like a really good idea. Would you be open to that?" And he might go, "Sure." Right? If he's a dad in jeans and he doesn't really have much experience, he might be like, "Hey, I'm open to everything. That's a great idea. Let's do it. What else did Coach Edwards say?" And then send me an email and I'll draw something out for you. Okay. But yeah, you've got to, that's like, you have to adult, right, Jennifer? Like you have to adult on that one and just go like, "Hey, we're all in this together. We're trying to get our goalie better. We're trying to get our team better. But this sounds like a pretty good idea. Why don't we try that?" And then you can work on, um, like outlet passing. I don't know if I can pull this up. I don't know if this is gonna work. Short notice, but let me see if I can do this, and I'll do this for you. Where are they? Where are they? Boom. Okay, hang tight. Let me see if I can do this. Like this is a very simple way to do this. Boink, boink. Here. Okay, hang on. Adding source. Oh, where's my face? There's my face. We'll do this. Hang on. I'm going long on this one just for you guys, but this will probably be helpful for people. Okay. All right. So, all right, my face. There's my face. Okay. So here's a simple way to do this. So now some of you are going to have teams with a lot of kids. Some of you guys are going to have teams with not a lot of kids. You've got to be flexible with me here. Okay. So, but let's say like this is, I've got one coach, maybe I've got two coaches, whatever, and I've got a goalie. Maybe I've got another goalie. Okay. Maybe I've got another goalie here. Duplicate that. All right, so I'm gonna have a goalie back here, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put balls like on either side of the cage, and I'm gonna put balls behind where this extra goalie can get them. So then let's say I'm gonna take a line of take a line of players, and we're gonna go over here. Oh, and I'm gonna duplicate that. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. So let's say I got a line here. And we're gonna have this line come down and they're gonna shoot. They're gonna shoot on the goalie. Okay. They're gonna shoot on the goalie. Now, what I can have over here is I can have a line as well. I can have a line as well, like over here, and we'll duplicate that. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, how'd you get way around there? Okay, like we'll put a line over here. Okay, so now let's say this like this player comes down with the ball, and they're gonna shoot. They're gonna shoot on the goalie, and what we'll do is we'll tell the kids like, "Okay, I want all the shots like sticks that high." Now in college, like as your kids are better, I can say like, "Okay, I want all the shot sticks that high. I want them sticks that hip, whatever. If you've got like young, not so accurate kids, you say like, okay, I want everything in the upper half of the cage, right? Or the lower half of the cage. And that can be fine. Okay. But that helps the goalies too, in order to prepare what's going on. Now, as a coach, you can be in the middle of the mess and to be able to see like everything that's going on. But then you get a shot on the goalie, right? Now, if the goalie makes a save, okay, if a goalie makes a save, this line can then break up fields, okay, and my goalie can make an outlet pass to this player, right? Now, what you can do too with these extra guys, with these extra players. Whoops, whoa, how'd that happen? Um, whoa, hello. I'm not sure what's going on. Um, There we go. I could take these players and I could put them over here because then they're backups. They're backing up from that pass, and we can do all sorts of things. And then this player, they'll run up fields, and then they'll get the pass, and then they'll replace. You can replace them here, or you could say, okay, you go to the end of the shooter line, and then after a while you switch them, and then you can switch both sides. Like whatever. But like that's one of the simplest things you can do, right? It's one of the simplest things you can do. So, um, so I just wanted to show you like one thing there because like I could go on, but the idea is that you can do 1,000 things, right? And line drills are like the last thing on the list that I would go to. So please keep that in mind. All right, guys, thanks for watching and thanks for listening wherever you are. Do me a favor, hit the like button if you like this, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. When you're ready, head on over to lacrossegoalieuniversity.com/coaching so I can work with you and your goalie. And while you're at it, check out athletespecific.com to learn more about mental performance and high performance. You may not know this, but I work with athletes in a variety of sports. Lacrosse is my love, but man, I love athletes and the families who support them. So head on over to athletespecific.com, check it out. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.